This means they have to have the insulin, what they're taught. This is what they're taught. They have to have insulin. We'll learn about type 2. A lot of type 2s have insulin, but they don't, it's not necessary. This one, they say you have to have. That's what they teach in the medical field. Okay, now type 2 diabetes. Now 5%, this 5% is affected by type 1. But it's getting larger now because remember, there's type 3, which is a combination of both. Which means more people are starting to get type 1 as well. And it's not in children anymore like it used to be. We're going to find out why it affects children. In page 290, this is Encyclopedia of Foods and Their Healing Power. Page 290, we're told the following. Okay. Milk is the culprit for type 1 diabetes in children. We're going to find out why in just a moment. Several studies have shown that infants fed with cow's milk show a greater tendency to type 1 diabetes. Diabetics should, it says reduce, we want to eliminate, milk consumption as a simple precaution. There is no scientific evidence that non-fat or low-fat dairy products present any threat to diabetics, although it does because there's sugar in it, and sugar increases your levels. Now here's the thing. Why does milk affect children especially? Are children born, babies born with an immune system that's working right away? No. They get their immune defense mechanism from where? From the mother's breast milk, okay? Now, think of it this way. Think of who's the only species in the world that drinks milk from another species after you've been weaned? Humans do that. Now, did you know that inside the milk, there's antibodies that help fight infection and stuff like that? What these antibodies do is they go into the intestines, and what they do is they look for invaders. Now, if the cow's antibodies are inside a human, is the human body going to be normal, or are they going to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sort of activated, sort of.
Right, but is familiar. Is a cow's antibodies familiar with the human body? No, so what are those antibodies going to start doing? Attacking. And that's where the problem comes from. And it affects the babies and the children more than anything because their immune system is not fully developed like an older person's. Are you guys, is that understandable? Okay. And Dr. Vigil shared that 84% of dairy herds that were tested had leukemia. Leukemia is another disease from drinking milk and doing dairy products. 84%, is that a high number? Yes, and 50% of those cows had AIDS.
Wow.
Is that crazy? Is it time for God's people to get off the milk and the dairy products? Yes, absolutely. Okay, type 2 is referred to as adult onset diabetes, which is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. 90% are affected by this one. 90% of the population. Type 2 diabetics pancreas work fairly well, but the insulin is not being utilized the way it's supposed to be. So think of this. I'm insulin, okay? I have two arms. One arm of insulin goes to the cell, to the window of the cell. Let's pretend the cells have windows or doors. The insulin's job is to take one arm, go to the window of the cell, open up that window. The other arm is to scoop up the sugar out of the blood and stick it in the, stick it in the cell, okay? Now, we're going to learn it a little bit, but there's something that seals off the cell that prevents the sugar from going into the cell. We're going to find out what that is in just a moment. So what causes diabetes? Start naming some things. Just name some stuff. What causes diabetes?
Sugar. Well, they say sugar doesn't cause it. But...
Okay, I want to hear the answers. What causes diabetes? Who says sugar? Raise your hand. If you think sugar, don't say it because so-and-so or Sister Distance said it doesn't. If you think sugar causes diabetes, raise your hand. You think sugar, you think sugar, you think sugar. Okay.
Isn't it, I would say,
there's only one cause of diabetes.
Hold on. Okay, we're gonna talk about what causes it.
obesity, fleshy.
Hereditary, okay, is a factor, but here's the thing. Hereditary loads the gun. But does a loaded gun go off by itself? No. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. So if people in your family have it, you're more predisposed to getting it. But Sister White says, even though it was passed on to us from our parents, if we practice what we know to be doing, this could be reversed. Okay? So hereditary. Now, sugar does not cause it, but it can increase it. Because what happens is when the sugar is not being able to be put into the cell, when you eat more sugar, you're adding sugar to the sugar that's already in there. Alcohol can increase sugar. It doesn't cause it, it can increase it. We're going to find out right now what causes it. Now, what if I never drank alcohol in my life, or you're not a drinker? What else is equivalent to alcohol?
Milk and sugar.
Milk and sugar, and somebody else said it. Vinegar, that's right. Vinegar can have the same effects. Okay, now, this is what causes diabetes. This is Health Power. This is an Adventist health book, very good book. If you guys want to get one of these, just let me know. On page 53, what causes adult onset diabetes? Studies demonstrate a strong relationship in fat, both fat in the diet and fat on the body. Now, just because a person's big doesn't mean they have diabetes, but they're more predisposed to it. The disease is rare in areas of the world where fat intake is low and obesity uncommon. Now, listen to this. They took two groups. People say, well, I thought it was sugar. No, they're finding out it's not sugar. James Anderson, MD, Professor of Medicine and Clinical Nutrition of the University of Kentucky College of Medicine, and a widely respected authority on diabetes, he did this. He took two groups of people. He was able to turn lean, healthy young men into mild diabetics in less than 2 weeks, in less than 14 days, by feeding them a rich 65% fat diet. A similar group was given a 10% fat diet and 1 pound of sugar every day. The group that was given the 1 pound of sugar every day, their levels never changed. The ones who was given a 65% fat diet became diabetics in 2 weeks. So does it take long to become a diabetic? No. Absolutely not. So you can live this health message all your life, right? And then decide you want to go back to eating the SAD diet, standard American diet, you can become diabetic. Especially because it'll hit us 7 times more. Remember, we're told we'll be 7 times worse off? So fat in the diet and fat on the body is what causes diabetes. Sugar can worsen it. Alcohol worsens it. Hereditary predisposes you to being diabetic. But that doesn't mean you have to become diabetic just because it runs in your family. Alrighty. Facts about diabetes. Diabetes affects how much of your body? It affects you from head to toe. It affects your eyes. You can go blind. The sugar gets in the lens. You can get glaucoma. You can go blind. It affects your blood vessels. What did we say is good if you get glaucoma? Do you remember natural remedy for that? Lemon juice is good for that. Also, they use 2 drops of castor oil for cataracts, glaucoma, but lemon juice is also good. Honey's very good as well, yes. It affects your blood vessels. Diabetes by itself can give you hardening of the arteries because of the sugar buildup. It can give you decreased blood flow. Diabetes lose extremities because of the decreased blood flow to the vessels. They get gangrene, and then they get sick, and then they get decreased blood flow to the area where the gangrene is. They get what's called peripheral neuropathy. You guys heard of that? That means your nerves don't feel well in the periphery. your hands, your legs, your feet, especially your feet. They get a lot of sores there because they bang and they don't even realize it. You don't feel your foot well. And so people have what's called a slap foot gait. They don't feel their feet, so you see people do this when they walk? That's called a slap foot gait because they can't feel their foot. So they're making sure they're hitting the ground and they don't fall. They also get injuries. Okay? Now we talked about the insulin. Remember the 2 jobs of the insulin? What are the 2 jobs? The first job is to open the window to the cell. And the second job is to pick up the sugar and put it in the cell. But if you have a high-fat diet, that fat seals off the cell. So when the insulin, the arm goes to open up that window, it can't. It's stuck. Now, let me ask you guys a question. If you were to come to my house and you went to use my restroom, and my bathroom sink was plugged in, and the water was flowing, and water was flowing everywhere, what is the first thing you would do?
Turn off the water.
You would turn off the water. Who agrees with that? So how do we turn off the water with diabetes? No. What did we say? What causes the diabetes? High-fat diet. So we want a what? We want a low-fat diet. We want to decrease the fat in the amount. Now, are nuts fat? Yes. Did you? Yes, but you can do too much, and you can cause to have too much fat in the body as well, and cause yourself to have diabetes on nuts. There are people who bring bags of nuts like this to work and eat the whole bag in one day. How many nuts should we eat a day?
A handful.
A handful. 1/4 to 1/3 cup, maximum 1/3. Minimum 1/4 a cup, which is a handful. Maximum 1/3 cup. Okay. So, if the sugar's not getting into the cell, where's the sugar going? How does it get out? Right, it's in the blood, but how is it going to get out now? It has to get out somewhere.
Urine.
Who said it? Urine, through the kidneys. So, you start urinating blood. You get what's called polyuria. Polyuria. Let me write this down. Okay? Now, when you urinate a lot, what does that cause you to do?
Be thirsty.
Be thirsty. So we have polydipsia. Okay? Let me just write what this is. Excess urine.
Excess thirst.
Excess thirst. Now, what do you need for energy?
Sugar.
You need sugar.
Glucose.
You need glucose. But if the glucose is not getting into the cell, what are you going to feel like?
Sluggish.
You're going to feel sluggish. So what do people do to have energy?